January 5th. Right now, we have our friends from Bradley Medical Center joining us. We are joined by Dr. Bill Johnson and Dr. Daniel Vance. So great to have both of you here in the studio this morning.
Glad to be here.
Thank you.
All right. So first of all, it is, we actually had Lisa, Jeanette, and Stephanie in our studio just recently. They were talking about a lot of great things that have been happening at the hospital. So what are your thoughts as to what they have already accomplished in this first year?
You go ahead, Dr. Johnson. You're the
All right.
senior guy here today.
I'm the senior guy. Well, just kind of in background, I'm a retired general surgeon, been involved in general surgery for 40 years. And then as a retirement job, I took this chief medical officer job at the hospital for another 8 years. So I've been involved in the hospital here for more than 45 years. And honestly, right this minute, I'm more excited about the hospital than I've been in decades. Just looking at what they're doing. Some of it has to do with this not-for-profit status. In my time as CMO, watching money flow out of the hospital and looking at sort of the mindset of a for-profit hospital where they have to satisfy stockholders and dividend and stock prices. And with this not-for-profit status, now looking at it, the hospital really is looking at it as a long-term deal where spending some money up front to make a long-term improvement in the community is the mindset, and I think that's really exciting. I think the other thing is that their community involvement, to me, is a big deal, and that's been lacking for a pretty good while. This community founded, I don't know the names of all the boards, but there's a hospital board that's community-based. There's a community foundation that I'm a part of, board that is looking at ways to try to make healthcare better in the long run. So to me, that is just a big deal. And during my 8 years of CMO, Chief Medical Officer time, I listened to gripes, and that was my main job sometimes. And it was mostly from docs griping about things they couldn't get through the old corporate system. And then looking at their satisfaction today, my old doc friends, it's been really exciting. So I'm about as excited about the hospital today as I have been in 20 years.
Dr. Vance?
Yeah. Well, my wife, Janet Snoddy, and I moved here to practice medicine 42 years ago. And I did internal medicine. She worked the emergency room the first 10 years. And in those days, our old Bradley Memorial Hospital was a county-owned hospital run by local people, and all the doctors lived here in town. And I remember one time at our church, I counted 30 doctors in our membership at our church, and it was just an amazing community to work in, and felt very supported, and everything was run by the local people to the needs of the local people largely. And then we sold the hospital and became a for-profit hospital for several decades. And during those times, I'll have to say, the medical community started to fragment more. We had more out-of-town doctors here and more people that weren't from our community running our hospital, and didn't seem as sensitive to the needs of the community, and seemed to be more interested in supporting the profits of the big corporation in Franklin. Very frustrating times, and a time of great change in medicine as a whole, so we can't go back to those days of the old Bradley Memorial. But I'm like Dr. Johnson. Since Vitruvian Health took over management of the hospital a year and a half ago, it's been more like the old hospital that I remember. I'm really glad they changed the name too. We had lots of jokes when they changed the name from Bradley Memorial to Sky Ridge. The popular thing was to call it Die Ridge, and then they changed it to Tenova, which was really catchy because that young football player from Knoxville advertised for them. But then people would come up with it when they said, well, that means turn over and die. So I was really happy to hear that they changed the name back to Bradley. So it's Bradley Medical Center now, and it identifies the local connection to this community and the surrounding counties, and I think that's really important.
Again, we're joined by Dr. Bill Johnson, Dr. Daniel Vance with Bradley Medical Center. So when Lisa, Jeanette, and Stephanie were in, one thing they discussed was the first ever community health needs assessment and how community leaders came together for that. So you were part of that summit group, weren't you, Dr. Johnson?
Yeah, I sure was. That was exciting. That was interesting. I'm not sure whether that came out of the for-profit world or where it came from, but the idea that there were a whole group, I don't know exactly how many, but I bet there were 30, 35 people at that meeting, and they represented just about every one of the community entities that I can think of, the Chamber, United Way, about every NGO that I know, because I've worked with a lot of those over the years, Hispanic community, Ukrainian community. And I think the goal of that was really to identify the main healthcare needs and the way the hospital could be involved in their improvement or resolution. And I think out of that comes the potential for a really good long-term plan. And I talked to Lisa some I talk to Lisa some all the time, but I talked to her some, and looking at their long-term plan, the hospital's long-term plan, I really think it's taken that community needs assessment idea, the needs that came out of that discussion, which were really good, and trying to implement long-term change that's good for the hospital, good for the community, good for healthcare overall. So I think, again, that's another one of those exciting things I see as a change from the sort of for-profit model of dividends and stock prices to change into a long-term view that says if we give good health care, we'll do fine in the long run. And I think that's sort of the feel I get for the hospital. So I think that's where that came. And the other thing that came out of that, I think, was, good health care takes good caring. It takes good docs. It takes good equipment. It takes good hospital staffing. But it also takes good caring. That is, to make people feel like you matter, that you're important. And I think that attitude change at the hospital is one of the biggest things I see. And I think that's a cultural change that ain't easy. But I think somehow they're starting to build that feeling of you show up in the emergency room and somebody says, "Oh, can I help you?" And I think it's different.
Dr. Vance, your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. One of the first things they did when Lisa and her team took over was to ask the staff, what do we need at the hospital? And the staff loudly told them, we need new beds. I don't think the beds have been replaced in 20 years. And they immediately put in orders for new beds and replaced them all. It's been a great improvement in the care people get. And that's one thing you really notice while you're staying in the hospital is how comfortable is that bed, and the staff has to have beds that are functional and make their jobs easier. So that was done really quickly. I was impressed because in the past, under our old leadership, if you had a need, you would express it and it would be put on the agenda for future budgets, and it just seemed like there was never a time that would be worked into the budget, and it would go on year after year after year without getting fixed. But things move a lot faster with our new management, and I'm just really encouraged the hospital's coming along better. I know my partners at Cleveland Medical Associates are more involved in the hospital now. Dr. Azar Sheik's our medical director at the hospital, and I talked to him a lot about what's going on, and he is very encouraged by the fact that they're listening to our needs and trying to help the community. Since they've started, they've recruited new doctors this year, which was kind of at a stalemate for years, but we've recruited a new endocrinologist, the first board-certified hand surgeon to be recruited to this town, and a new ENT doctor to replace our older group that recently retired. So I'm just amazed at how fast things are changing and how much the hospital's coming up, and expect in the years ahead we're going to see a lot more improvement.
Again, we're talking with Dr. Bill Johnson, Dr. Daniel Vance with Bradley Medical Center. So talk to us about connected care and what that means.
Well, to me, it's the big deal. Good health care takes coordinated care. You show up in the emergency room, you get seen, there's some sort of follow-up. If that's not all put together, it just doesn't work well. And it needs to be locally put together. So if you look at the ER the emergency department docs here, they've got a relationship with the hospitalists that take care of you when you're in the hospital. They know each other. They talk to each other. As you leave the emergency room and you need follow-up for your pneumonia, those ER docs communicate with the town outpatient docs well. They know each other, they work with each other. Plus, the hospital's got a good coordinated system for information exchange. So this new computer system, I know it was a chore to change, but the new computer system is really good about what I understand from my old surgery office, about being able to get results, lab results, x-ray results, reports from the ER. So that connected care is huge. And I think it's got to be a local connection. It can't be a distant connection. So I think the hospital is doing a really good job with that right now. But that is probably one of the biggest parts of what makes good health care.
Dr. Vance?
Yeah, I agree. The feeling of being connected to the hospital is better than it has been in a long time. I recently complained I was having some difficulty getting some reports from imaging after they were done. And within a week, the head of the imaging department and the woman who's in charge of patient access, I think's the call of it, the name of it, came over to my office and met with me and found out what my problems were, and within 2 days had answers for me, and things were going a lot better. So just feeling like there was somebody at the hospital who was really responding to our needs was really an improvement. I felt really encouraged by that. The feeling of connection and using your local doctors is really important, I think. Back in the day, like I say, 40 years ago, we came to town and there were no specialists, medical specialists, only surgical subspecialists like urology and ear, nose, and throat. And all the doctors in town pretty much referred to each other in town and kept our patients together where we knew what was going on with one another. We would see each other in the doctor's lounge at the hospital every morning and communicate and see each other on rounds at the hospital. But back in the late 90s, that became more fragmented. It was harder to keep in touch with the doctors, but our new administration understands the importance of us getting together and being able to communicate better, and they've taken steps to try to improve that so that we can keep in touch with our colleagues here in town and coordinate care with our patients better than before.
So as we, I'm sorry,
Bridget,
go
can I
ahead.
add one little thing? You look at improvements. Of the areas I used to hear complaints about when I was doing my CMO tenure, it was the emergency room. I mean, the emergency room's always been the touch point for either complaints or accolades. I have a really good friend that 6 weeks ago woke up at 2 a.m. with chest pain. And instead of calling the ambulance like he should have, he got his wife to drive him to the ER. Well, so he gets let out the door. Somebody takes him in. By the time his wife parks the car, he's already back in a room. So he showed me his little time frame from the records that they give you from the ER, and he was 3 minutes from the time he checked in at the front desk till the time he was in a room. And at 5 minutes, he'd had an EKG, identified the fact that he'd had a heart attack. By 35 minutes, he was in the cath lab, and he was out of the cath lab at just over an hour with a stent and a declotted left main artery. At 2 days, he was home, and at 2 weeks, he was back to work. So you kind of look at that, and there's been a lot of griping about the ER, but I hear nothing but positives today. And I went over with Lisa sort of the metrics I used to look at all the time, and all of those metrics, how long it takes to go from the getting checked in till the time he gets seen, how long it takes to get an EKG, how long it takes to get admitted, have really made remarkable progress. So I think, the hospital's doing some really right things, and you get some really right results when that happens.
All right. So as we wrap up this morning, what else do you think the community needs to know about Bradley Medical Center?
Well, I think it's important to know that they're working on a program with Siskin to have a rehab facility in the old West Side campus, and that's something I'm really looking forward to. I'm really impressed with the new Women's Imaging Center on West Side campus. I've been there myself and had a bone density test done. They've just now offered a new service, which is body composition analysis, which previously you couldn't get anywhere between Nashville and Atlanta. Still don't have it in Chattanooga. An advanced way of telling how much muscle, fat, and bone is in your body and how strong your bones are. They have a brand new mammogram machine that was put in less than a year ago and does excellent 3D mammography. And an ultrasound machine where they can do more comprehensive breast evaluations. So my patients are finding that to be a very helpful option. And I understand there's plans to renovate the old West Side campus and reopen 10 emergency room beds that were there. That's going to be really helpful too, having more access to urgent care.
All right, Dr. Johnson?
Well, I'm just impressed that they let Dr. Vance, go into the Women's Center.
They have a special men's day.
I mean, honestly, I guess the way I'd sum this up in my mind is the difference between short-term decision-making, both on money and staffing and that kind of thing, and this long-term view of saying that good health care in the long run is good for the community, it's good for the hospital. And I think that change in mindset has made a huge difference in the hospital system. system. So I'm as excited about, I've been around at the hospital for 45 plus years, and I'm as excited about the hospital today as I've been in 20 years. So.
All right. Again, that's Dr. Bill Johnson, Dr. Daniel Vance with Bradley Medical Center. We appreciate you both coming in this morning.
Thank you.
All righty. It is 8